Hey everyone, I hope you're well. This is the story about what if Naruto was Tobirama's grandson and had ice release. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. So without any further ado, let's start the what if. With Team 8. Kiba, Sakura and Shino were now on their way to the tower, after defeating a team from Taki who fell into their trap. It was a simple net snare, followed by numerous giant leeches that fell on their bodies, sucking out their blood until they were incapacitated. It was a flawless plan, thanks to their experience with traps and Shino's knowledge on insects in the area. Luckily, the Taki team had the scroll they needed, which is an earth scroll. Kiba was ecstatic as he believed that they might be the first team to arrive in at the tower. Sakura was just glad that they will soon get out of the creepy forest. Shino was just being Shino. Woohoo! I knew that we would survive this. Right, Akamaru? Kiba said excitedly to his furry companion. Yip yip. Akamaru barked in agreement. Kiba, don't jinx us. We were lucky those guys from Taki had an earth scroll in the first place. Sakura said slightly annoyed. But that didn't tamper the young Inuzuka's joyous mood. And because of that, we're going to be the first ones to reach the tower. Come on, Sakura, be excited for once. Kiba said to his Pinkette teammate. I will be excited when we get out of this godforsaken forest, not before. Sakura said. She's right, Kiba. We shouldn't be overconfident. Why do you ask? It's because it is a dangerous mistake that can get us killed. No matter how small a bug is, it still has to guard itself at all times. We have to make sure that we don't encounter any enemies until we reach the tower. That is the only way that we'll truly be safe. Shino said with his logic. Yeah, I know that. Geez, you two need to chill out and enjoy yourselves once in a while. Like me. I'm having the time of my life. Kiba said with a grin. But ironically, his pink-haired teammate was starting to get annoyed by his loud and careless attitude, so Sakura hits Kiba in the head, to literally knock some sense into him. K-pow. We are in a place, nicknamed the Forest of the Death, surrounded by enemy ninjas, man-eating animals and poisonous insects. Only a maniac would enjoy themselves here, Kiba. Sakura yelled out, but elsewhere, a certain busty special jonin sensed a disturbance. As if someone had mocked her, they will pay as soon as she finds out who. Fine. God. You don't have to hit me, you banshee. Kiba said, as he rubbed his head. That's how I keep you alive, baka. Sakura stated with a satisfied smirk. But Kiba also smirked at that comment. Ah, I'm touched. Have I managed to worm my way into your cold heart, Sakura? Kiba asked with the smirk never leaving his face. But that remark just made Sakura feel nauseous. If you do that, I'll literally get worms, dog boy. Sakura said, slightly grossed out. As Kiba was about to retort, Akamaru sniffed something up ahead. Sniff asterisk sniff, yip, yip. Akamaru barked. Guys, hold on. We have to stop. Kiba said, stopping his teammates at their tracks. Why? Shino asked. You said we should be careful not to come across any enemies, right? Well, Akamaru and I smell a group up ahead. Kiba stated, as pointed his finger at the direction of the enemy group. Shino then placed his ear on the ground to listen for any vibrations. Evidently, they are 6 people, I think. Shino stated. Alright. Let's check it out. Kiba suggested eagerly. Did your mother drop you as a baby? You just said we should be careful not to come across enemies, Kiba-baka. Sakura reminded with a slight screech in her voice. Kiba, we're not doing that. It's foolish. Shino said, agreeing with the Pinkette. Why not? That sexy proctor told us we need one heaven and earth scroll, right? But she didn't say we can't take more than that. Besides, if we get more scrolls, there will fewer to go around, and that means less competition for us, ha ha ha. Kiba pointed out, surprisingly with some logic. But Sakura tried to argue, but Kiba cut her off. Look, we'll just check it, okay? If it looks too dangerous, we won't battle them. So let's go. Kiba said excitedly, as he and Akamaru jumped ahead. Kiba, wait. Sakura yelled out, slightly worried. He's the kind of guy that even the hungriest of insects would avoid. Shino pointed out, with a tired sigh. Is that your logical answer, Shino? Sakura asked. No, just the truth. Shino simply stated, as he and the Pinkette went after their teammate and his dog. The bug user and Pinkette finally caught up to the dog lover, and they are currently hiding behind some bushes. But when they arrive, they notice Akamaru looked completely terrified. What's wrong, Akamaru? Kiba asked his Ninken. What happened? You just stopped all of a sudden. Shino asked. Yeah, something really spooked the little guy. Kiba said, and Akamaru immediately jumped into Sakura's arms for comfort. But what scared him? Sakura asked, as he petted the small whimpering puppy. I have no idea. My clan's ninja dogs, including Akamaru, has the ability to sniff out the level of an enemy's chakra. But man, I never seen him this scared before. Whoever those ninja up ahead are, they aren't normal guys. Kiba pointed out the 6 individual ahead. Apparently, it was Gaara's team and an older genin team from Amigakure. The AIM team consists of Shigeru, Midar, and Bayu. It seems they think that the younger Suna team before them was easy pickings, especially Gaara due his shortness. They let their arrogance blind them to the fact that Gaara and his siblings were nothing but snot-nosed kids. But Gaara couldn't care less for their boastful taunts. As to him, the AIM team were nothing but ants ready to be stomped, and he made sure they know that. I've heard enough of you. Let's end this, quick. I don't want to waste time on weaklings like you. Gaara said with his monotone voice towards the supposed leader of the AIM team, Shigeru, which the older genin did not take too kindly for the disrespectful comment from the supposed Suna runt. Surprisingly, Kankuro tried to be the reasonable one for once, and pointed out that if the AIM team didn't have the scroll they need, there was no point wasting their time with them. But Gaara immediately dismissed it, and decided to kill them anyway, due to, they look at him the wrong way. Shigeru, who didn't like the assumption that the Suna runt could kill him so easily, took out all 6 umbrellas from his back, and threw them in the air. He then made a single hand seal. Ninja art, Senbon Rainstorm. And just like that, a rainstorm of countless needles was unleashed from the spinning umbrellas, towards Gaara from all directions, but the supposed Suna runt didn't even flinch or move a muscle. Shigeru smirked at a job well done, when the Senbons crashed towards Gaara, but his smirk immediately faded, when a wall of sand was surrounding the Suna runt, blocking every single Senbon from hitting him. Gaara taunted Shigeru for his undelivered threats, and as the shocked AIM ninja managed to snap himself out of his disbelief, due to his miserably failed attack, he sends another hail of Senbons, but the results are the same. Not one managed to hit Gaara. Getting frustrated for his failed attacks, Shigeru, a seasoned genin, did the stupidest thing he ever could, and what is considered to be his biggest and last mistake of his life, he charged towards Gaara. Gaara smirked at his foolishness, and formed a single hand seal. Afterwards, he clawed his hand and pointed it towards the AIM genin. Sand coffin. The sand beneath Shigeru's feet began to wrap itself around his body, completely covering him in a cocoon of sand, trapping the AIM genin completely, whilst shocking his terrified and helpless teammates. Shigeru's umbrellas began to fall to ground, and one of them landed in front of Gaara. The Suna Jinchuriki then picked the umbrella up and opened it. All I have to do is cover your big mouth and you'll be dead, but I want to hear you scream. Gaara said with his monotone voice, but his eyes were crying for blood. He then lifted the trapped Shigeru in the air, as he begged for his life, but his words only fell on deaf ears. Then Gaara said the 2 words that every resident from Suna fears, and hopes to never be on the receiving end. Sand burial. The sand cocoon immediately imploded, as Shigeru was completely crushed with so much force that his bones turned to bits, and his blood was splattered all over the place, sinking into the earth and sand. Mid-R, one of Shigeru's completely terrified teammates, tried to bargain for his and Bayu's life, by offering their heaven scroll in exchange. They continued to beg for their lives, but unfortunately for them, Gaara's thirst for blood has not yet been satisfied. Gaara then covered the two Ain Genins with his sand, and killed them instantly, but not before they let out a terrifying scream, as their bones and organs turned to mush. Seeing enough, Kiba, Shino and a fear-stricken Sakura, slowly tried to get the hell out of there, before they get killed by the homicidal Suna Genin next. But Gaara turned to their direction, when he heard the sound of a broken twig, which immediately made the Genins of Team 8's eyes to widen in panic and fear. Gaara slowly approached their direction to investigate the sound, which made their hearts race, like it was running a marathon. They knew if they run, they'll be immediately spotted and killed before they could get far. But if they stay where they are, they will eventually be spotted and killed nonetheless. It was a lose-lose situation either way, and fighting was not an option. Kiba and Shino couldn't do anything but brace themselves for their inevitable doom, but surprisingly, when Gaara was closing in on the bush they were hiding behind, he saw nothing. He looked around further, but there was no trace of anyone there. It must have been an animal, he thought. As he walked away from the supposed empty bush and back to his siblings, he didn't realize he missed the C-rank genjutsu that was placed by Sakura, to hide herself and her teammates. It was the classic demonic illusion, false surroundings, which was taught to her by her Jonin sensei. Kiba and Shino looked towards their terrified pink-haired teammate, whose hands were still shaking, as they were still in her jutsu's hand seal form. Kiba gently placed his hand on hers to stop her shaking, and surprisingly it did. He looked into her fearful emerald eyes, and gave her a thankful and apologetic nod, as he quietly led her and Shino away. But surprisingly, Kiba didn't realize that he was still holding Sakura's hand in his. But even more surprising, was that she didn't pull away, instead she just squeezed it a little tighter, as they made their escape. With Team Suna. As Team 8 was sneaking away, Gaara and his siblings are arguing, well, more like Kankuro and Temari are trying to talk down a ticking time bomb, which is Gaara, since the AIM team he had killed happens to have the scroll they needed, which allows them to just head to the tower, but not so surprisingly, Gaara refuses to go yet, since he has not had his fill of blood. Kankuro tried to reason with his little brother, but the Suna Jinchuriki simply called him a coward. This obviously boils the young puppeteer's blood a bit, but he was smart enough to not start something with the homicidal boy. Look Gaara, I know this test is no problem for you, but it's dangerous for Temari and I. One set of scroll is good enough. It's all we need to pass. Kankuro said, as he approached Gaara. Losers, can't tell me what to do. Gaara simply said, which pushed the already frustrated puppeteer to his breaking point. Kankuro then grabbed Gaara by the strap of his gourd. Alright, that's enough. Sometimes you have to listen to what your big brother says. Kankuro yelled out, as he gripped the strap and pulled Gaara closer. Kankuro was finally standing up to his little brother as he refuses to be treated like he was a stranger. If only Gaara knew how much Kankuro and Temari still care about him, despite every monstrous things that he had done. Well, it's too bad that I don't think of you as my big brother at all. If you get in my way, I will kill you. Gaara said with his emotionless tone. This obviously broke Kankuro's heart a little, but the courage in his eyes never wavered, as he continues to have a stare down with his little brother, who was giving him a death glare. Temari was starting to feel worried for her brother's life, so she decided to speak up. Wait. Just hold on, Gaara. You don't have to treat us like we're your enemy. Look, just do it as a favor to your sister. Please. Temari begged, hoping to calm her little brother down. It was few moments of intense silence, but Kankuro and Temari's eyes were widened when Gaara smacked Kankuro's hand away from his strap, and pointed his clawed hand towards the puppeteer, implying to use his signature killing move on his brother. Temari knew she needed to stop things from escalating any further, but suddenly, they heard the voice of someone familiar. That is no way to treat your big brother, Gaara-kun. The eyes of the San siblings were widened when they heard the sudden bubbly voice that was coming from next to Gaara. That voice happened to belong to the mint-haired Jinchuriki from Taki, who suddenly appeared next to the Suna Jinchuriki, and surprisingly, without anyone noticing her presence before she announced herself. Both Temari and Kankuro yelled out of surprise at Fu's sudden appearance. "How did you get there?" Temari yelled out as she grabbed the giant fan on her back. "Life finds a way. Isn't it wonderful?" Fu said in a carefree tone, until she quickly jumped away to avoid the approaching tendrils of sand from catching her. Gaara then sends out waves of sand towards Fu, as the tendrils continue to try and snatch her, but Fu was surprisingly very fast and agile, until she finally backflipped a couple feet away from the sand siblings, landing in a cute pose. "If you wish to play, Gaara-kun, you only need to ask. I would be happy to play with you. After all, I love making sand castles," Fu said in her carefree tone, as she places her hands on her hips. "Silly girl, I have you now," Gaara said with his emotionless voice, but his eyes were screaming with bloodlust, as he sends another wave of sand after her, and she continues to dodge it. Sensing his siblings were about to take out their weapons to help fight her, Gaara immediately stopped them before they could. "No, the silly girl is mine." Gaara ordered for his siblings to stand down, as his eyes were purely focused on the agile mint-haired Jinchuriki, but his words were loud enough for her to hear. "JSSSPP, Gaara-kun, am I so precious to you, that you want me all to yourself? How exciting! It is like we are best friends already. Let's celebrate with a hug," Fu said excitedly, as she turns and runs towards Gaara in full speed, while avoiding his waves and tendrils of sand from snatching her. Temari and Kankuro were starting to get nervous. "This girl is insane." Gaara's sand had barely touched Fu, since she is surprisingly fast and agile. They were wondering if they should just jump in and help, regardless of what Gaara ordered, but then again they don't have a death wish and Gaara is considered unbeatable. So they decided to just let Gaara handle her. When Fu was closing in on Gaara by mere inches, ready to embrace him with a hug, his sand finally caught her legs, entrapping her. Oh, looks like you finally caught me, Gaara-kun. Now what?" Fu asked excitedly, and surprisingly not panicking. "Now you die," Gaara stated, as the sand began to wrap around Fu, completely encasing her in a cocoon of sand. Sigh, it's over, both Kankuro and Temari thought. Gaara then clawed his hand, and pointed it towards the sand cocoon before him, ready to end the annoying mint-haired girl once and for all, or so he thought. Sand Buri, Gaara was interrupted, as Fu's arms suddenly burst open from the cocoon, and gripped his neck in a stranglehold, shocking the Sand siblings, as for the first time ever, someone actually broke out of the unbreakable Sand coffin. But most importantly, someone was actually touching Gaara. "You're wrong, Gaara-kun, now it's my turn to play," Fu said, as she gave Gaara a rare smirk. Fu then completely broke herself out of the sand cocoon, and pulled Gaara by the neck towards her, with a fist leaning back. The sand could not react in time, as Fu's fist digged deep into Gaara's sand-armored cheek, landing an incredibly strong punch, breaking the armor instantly until it finally reached his flesh, sending him flying backwards like a ragdoll, but luckily his sand managed to cushion his fall, but it was still strong enough to leave a small crater. Temari and Kankuro were completely speechless. Someone actually hurt Gaara. And that punch could have killed him if it wasn't for his sand and armor. It seems that the Taki Jinchuriki is far more dangerous than she looks. Behind that bubbly cute smile is a dangerous opponent. "Gaara!" Kankuro and Temari yelled out, as they went to approach their little brother, but he barely paid any attention to them, as he was giving the Fu the biggest psychotic death glare he could give to anyone. But Fu, on the other hand, was simply blowing the dirt off her fist from Gaara's armor, and giving him a mischievous grin. "Teehee, this has been exemplary, Gaara-kun. But I'm afraid I must leave now. But thank you for this," Fu said joyously, as she held out an earth scroll in her hand. Gaara's eyes widened, as he checked the pocket of his robes, but found nothing. That little minx managed to snatch his earth scroll when she was close to him. This angered the Suna Jinchuriki even more. He now sees her as a plague to his health. That her very existence questions his. He wants to kill her even more now, more than Naruto and Yugito. "I will kill you, silly girl." Gaara surprisingly yelled out in anger, as he sends out massive waves of sand after her, completely surrounding the Taki Jinchuriki, with zero chance of escaping. As the waves of sand seemed to bury Fu completely, turning the forest into a small desert, he then slammed his hand on the sand pile. Giant sand burial. The sand immediately imploded, crushing anything underneath it. Gaara was smirking with satisfaction, but his smirk immediately faded when he heard the sound of a cute giggle and wings flapping above him. The San siblings turned their head upwards, and saw Fu flying above them, with a pair of large wings on her lower back that resemble a dragonfly. Miss me, now you cannot kill me. See you later, Gaara-kun. Fu said with a sing-song manner and gave a cute peach sign, as she flew away quickly before Gaara's sand could catch her. Gaara was seething his teeth in anger. He could fly as well with his sand, but not at her speed. She is already long gone by now. This isn't over, silly girl. I will prove my existence by killing you. Gaara yelled out angrily, which made Kankuro and Temari more nervous than ever, as he continues to scream in the wind. Great, now we gotta find another Earth Scroll. I'm just glad it's not my fault. In a way, I'm glad that crazy girl came. Someone finally knocked some sense into that little brat, but now I have to deal with a pissed off Gaara. Unbelievable. Someone actually hurt Gaara. I guess it's not so surprising, since she is one of the 9 Jinchurikis. But out of those 3 we met, she is the last one I thought who could. If she is that strong, I wonder what Naruto or that Kumo girl are capable of. This mission might be more dangerous than I thought. Temari thought worriedly. With Clone 7 and Team 7. Naruto's shadow clone, aka Clone 7, is now standing before Orochimaru, the infamous snake Sannin, the great bane of many of his precious people's pain, the tormentor of the innocent, and ruthless attacker of his close friends. And there he was, smirking with his snake-like eyes. Choji immediately went to retrieve the unconscious Hinata, while Clone 7 stood protectively in front of the weakened Sasuke, and was now having a glare down with the Sannin. Orochimaru was the first to break the silence. Kukukuku, well if it isn't Naruto Senju, the so-called hero of tea and waves. Orochimaru greeted with a smirk. And if it isn't Orochimaru, toucher of kids. Naruto stated with his own smirk. You have quite a mouth on you. Has anyone ever taught you to respect your elders? Orochimaru asked, slightly annoyed and a little amused. Says the elderly man who licks his lips, for kids. Naruto quipped. If you are going to insult me all day, it's best you carry on, and let me resume my business with Sasuke-kun. I have no quarrel with you, yet. But if you stand in my way, well let's just say, the Sannin will remain only 3, like it always have been. Orochimaru said with some venom in his voice, as he recalled what Kabuto said in room 301, that some people had the audacity to call him the 4th Sannin, which surprisingly angered him, for some reason. I didn't realize that bothered you so much, Orochimaru Teime. Clone 7 said with a smirk. You have no right to be called a Sannin, boy. You have not bled and suffered the horrors of war yet, like myself and my fellow Sannins had. The real Sannins. You're nothing but a pretender. Orochimaru sneered. Well, I'm sorry that I never had the honor of fighting the great Hanzo of the Salamander and lived to tell the tale. And if it makes you feel any better, I never called myself one in the first place. It's just a nickname the Konoha Jonins came up with, since I was trained by Sarutobi-sensei as well. But then again, Sannins are considered heroes of Konoha. You're just a sick creep now. Clone 7 stated. Kukukuku sticks and stones, Naruto-kun. And how is the old man? Still not dead yet? Orochimaru joked with a grin. Oh, don't worry. He might have a heart attack when I bring him your head, you sick son of a bitch. You're going to pay for all the people you killed and scarred, like Anko-nichan. Clone 7 said with some anger in his voice. Kukukuku, ah yes, sweet and devoted, Anko-chan. I noticed you two are quite close. Tell me, Naruto-kun, has she ever mentioned me? Do I still haunt her dreams? Does she still think about all the beautiful things I did to her, all for the name of science? And threw her away after like she was garbage? Orochimaru said with a devious grin, trying to get the blonde riled up. If you ever talk about her like that again. Or what? I fought in the Second Great Shinobi World War. I have killed many powerful men and women, and mastered jutsus that you can only see in your nightmares. I am the strongest Sannin there is. You can never hope to defeat me. Orochimaru boasted. Never say never, asshole. Clone 7 said, as he then made a cross-sign hand seal. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Almost 200 Narutos suddenly appeared, surrounding the snake Sannin, and they all made several hand seals and took a deep breath. Wind style, vacuum bullets barrage. All clones blew out a chain of small pressurized wind bullets towards the snake Sannin, tearing the area he was in to shreds, creating clouds of debris and dust all over. It lasted for almost 20 seconds, until they finally stopped firing. Clone 7 and his fellow clones knew that Orochimaru is an extremely slippery opponent, so it is highly likely that he managed to slip away, or replaced himself with a substitution. And his hunch was right when they saw that Orochimaru had indeed substitute himself with a mud clone. Each clone then used their sensory perception, but one of them had their eyes widened when he felt the snake Sannin was right behind him. Orochimaru then began to dispel the clones, one by one, as they charged towards him. Clone 7 can see why Orochimaru is considered as one of the most powerful shinobis that Konoha has ever produced. Not only he was inhumanely fast, but surprisingly strong as well. And he was making short work with all the clones that got near him. But unbeknownst to the Sannin, this was all part of Clone 7's plan. He knew he can't beat Orochimaru, since his power is limited, but he needed to stall for time. And for every clone dispelled, the original will immediately receive their memories. Not only the original Naruto will be alerted, but he will also gain some insight on Orochimaru's abilities and techniques. Clone 7 then looked behind him, and saw that Choji had managed to carry the still unconscious Hinata towards where he and Sasuke were positioned, and they were all huddled up together and safe, for now. Sasuke immediately took Hinata into his arms, to inspect the injury on her bleeding head where Orochimaru had kicked, and was relieved that she was still breathing. Clone 7 then addressed Sasuke and Choji. Guys, whatever you do, stick together. I'm going to buy us some time. Clone 7 said with a serious tone. Right, and Naruto, don't hold back. This guy is bad news. Sasuke advised. Clone 7 nodded, as he then turns his head to address to all his remaining clones. Boys! Formation, Cloudburst. Clone 7 announced. The clones near Orochimaru nodded in understanding, and immediately jumped away, and each clone made a single unique hand seal. Ninja Art, Hidden Mist Jutsu. An extremely thick layer of mist suddenly appeared, completely covering the area, as it was empowered by each clone. How is this possible? There is not a single body of water anywhere around here. How is he able to conjure a mist this thick? Orochimaru thought. Not wanting to lose his advantage of sight and hearing, Orochimaru then made several hand seals and took a deep breath. Wind style, almighty breakthrough. He then blew out an extremely powerful gust of wind from his mouth, blowing almost everything away like it was a hurricane. Team 7 was holding on for dear life, while some of the clones were dispelled by the blast. But surprisingly, the hidden mist jutsu still remains, which surprises Orochimaru even more. Kukuku impressive, Naruto-kun. That was one of my most strongest futon jutsus yet, and it should have blown everything away in an instant. So how are you doing this? Orochimaru asked curiously. Formation Cloudburst. It's a battle tactic I created. As a futon user myself, I know a strong wind attack is very effective against Kiri's infamous hidden mist jutsu. Sadly, it is one of its fatal weaknesses. However, I've discovered in a previous mission that the mist can be empowered by the quantity of the casters, but it all depends on the synchronization. And in case if you haven't noticed, clones tend to think alike. Naruto's voice was coming from all directions, leaving Orochimaru unable to pinpoint his location. Kukuku very clever. But a cowardly jutsu is not worth my time. So what will you do now, Naruto-kun? Orochimaru asked, like it was a challenge. Naruto didn't respond, instead Orochimaru couldn't hear a damn thing. What? Not so talkative anymore? Orochimaru jest with a smirk. The snake Sannin was beginning to be annoyed, as the smartass blonde is nowhere in sight, and is now silent all of the sudden. But his yellow eyes widened when he realized what the blonde is truly up to. He was trying to use the mist to cover his and Team 7's escape. That clever little shit. I can't lose them. I haven't marked Sasuke-kun yet. I want that Mangekyo. Orochimaru thought, slightly panicking. If you think you can GH. Orochimaru was cut off, as he literally felt something cut his back. Orochimaru didn't see where his attacker was, or heard where he came from, but he knew the blade the blonde used to cut him with was extremely sharp. But the weird thing was, it didn't felt like usual steel, more like a lighting-imbued sword. He then felt something cut his stomach. Gah! You little bastard! Orochimaru yelled out in anger. Orochimaru then felt multiple fast cuts all around his body from different directions. It was a cut-and-run tactic, used for weakening stronger opponents until they finally made a killing blow at the end, once their defenses are completely down. So he knows the silent killing technique as well. This boy is more interesting than I thought. If it wasn't for the damn Kyuubi, I would have marked him as well. Orochimaru thought. Feeling enough is enough, Orochimaru bit his thumb, and made several hand seals. He then slammed his open palm on the ground. Summoning Jutsu. From the large puff of smoke, 4 large snakes appeared, and began to rampage the area, dispelling every clone they came across with ease, until all clones were dispelled, and the thick mist was finally cleared. But to his horror, Clone 7 and Team 7 had indeed escaped during the foggy distraction. As he was about give chase, he heard Naruto's voice behind him. Well, looks like your praise had escaped, Orochimaru Teime. The real Naruto said with a smirk as she stood on a tree branch opposite the snake Sannin. He was able to arrive once all the clones were dispelled, via a Hiraition mark that Clone 7 had left. You! Do you have any idea what you cost me? Orochimaru yelled out with pure rage in his yellow eyes. But Naruto merely smirked with satisfaction. Oh, that wasn't me. No, you were fighting a shadow clone this whole time. Funny, right? And to answer your question, I think I have an idea. You were trying to give Sasuke the same hiki you gave Ankonichin, weren't you? Naruto said with a calm voice. Orochimaru never liked when his plans are foiled, but he had to commend the young genin before him. The Sannin really wanted to mark him as well, but it would be pointless, as a Bijuu's chakra is so volatile that it can burn the curse mark away like a vaccine. You are really clever, aren't you? Orochimaru said while seething his teeth. Well, when you have a sensei who is known as the professor, you tend to pick up a thing or two. But you know all about that, right, Orochimaru Teime? Naruto said. Such a pity. You would have been a fine vessel. But my priority is Sasuke-kun and his precious Mangekyo Sharingan. I couldn't get Itachi's, but Sasuke-kun is not as strong as him. He will be mine, his eyes will be mine, and not you or Sarutobi-sensei will deny me my prize, kukukukuku. Orochimaru declared, and laughed like a madman at the end. Naruto immediately narrowed his eyes in anger at the sick declaration. Keep your filthy hands away from my brother, you damn dirty snake. Naruto yelled out, as he unleashed a strong burst of chakra from his body, cracking the ground beneath him. He then formed several hand seals. Water style, giant vortex jutsu. Orochimaru smirked, as he wanted to laugh when he heard the name of the A-rank jutsu that the blonde just used. A Suiton jutsu of that caliber requires a large body of water for it to be effective, or work in general. But his smirk faded and his eyes widened, when a sea of water was starting to appear around Naruto out of thin air, and it was forming into a large horizontal vortex that was aimed towards the Sannin. Once it is large enough, the vortex immediately cascades down onto Orochimaru and his summoning snakes, dispelling them in an extremely wide-range attack, leaving no chance of escaping, as Orochimaru was swept away by the powerful current. Not even hiding underground was safe, as the force of the vortex is great enough to hollow out the earth beneath, washing away everything in the area. In the aftermath, whatever remains of the forest was devastated, as though some sort of natural disaster has just occurred. And Naruto was sure, everyone in the forest must have felt the seismic quake of his most powerful Suiton jutsu. Naruto then activated his sensory perception to check if Orochimaru is still nearby. Unfortunately, he sensed that the snake Sannin was still alive, which made him frown, but when he sensed that he was fleeing, he smiled a bit. He just need to be ready for next time. Naruto then teleported away in a yellow and red flash. With Team 7 and Team 10. When Clone 7 and the rest of Team 7 managed to rendezvous with Team 10 at the exact same spot, where Clone 7 left his Hiraishin kunai earlier when he rescued Choji, Ino immediately went to check on her Hyuga friend, who was still unconscious in Sasuke's arms. Clone 7 then finally dispelled itself, sending every information he learned back to the original, and boy, Naruto was honestly impressed. He didn't realize his clones can be just as smart as he is, but unfortunately not as strong. But thankfully, he didn't reveal too much of Naruto's abilities to the snake creep, and especially not Kurama's power or his Hyoton. Naruto told Shikamaru and Choji to look after Ino, while she provides some medical treatment to Sasuke and Hinata. The blonde Senju told them to wait for him until he returns, before he teleported away to the area where Orochimaru was, to deal with the snake Sannin. After a few minutes when Naruto left, the Hyuga princess was finally awake, which made everyone, especially Sasuke, sigh in relief. Ino was currently examining the bruise on her head. Okay, Hinata. Luckily, you don't show any signs of a concussion, which is good, however your head is gonna be bruised for a couple of days. But overall, you're gonna be fine. Ino informed with a reassuring smile, as she summoned some bandages from her wrist seal. Oh, that's good. Thank you, Ino, Hinata said with a soft smile, as Ino wrapped the bandages around her head. Yeah, thanks, Ino. We owe you one. Sasuke said gratefully. Suddenly, they felt a seismic quake that was caused by Naruto's jutsu, which made Ino very worried. But she sighed in relief when Naruto suddenly appeared in a yellow and red flash, and immediately went to approach them. So? Naruto asked Ino regarding Hinata's health. Don't worry, Hinata is going to be okay. Ino informed. Oh, thank goodness. Naruto said, as he sighed in relief. Are you okay though, Whiskers? When you asked us to wait here for you, the last thing you said before you teleported away was, and I quote, I'm gonna fight a Sannin. Then there was an earthquake. Care to explain? Ino asked with a deadpan look, which made Naruto's sweat drop a bit, as he cowers in fear by her angry gaze. Yeah, don't worry, Ino-chan. I don't have a scratch on me. We just talked a lot and I didn't like what he was saying. So I crushed him with a tsunami. But apparently it's not enough to kill him. Naruto said disappointedly. You say that like it's normal. God, you're troublesome. Shikamaru said. Come on, it won't be Naruto if he wasn't. Choji joked, which made everyone chuckle. Hey! Naruto yelled out, as he felt slightly offended. The group laughed at his reaction, which made him pout a little. Sasuke wanted to say something to the blonde, but was having trouble finding his words. He saw how a mere shadow clone of his was able to go toe-to-toe with Orochimaru, while he struggled and was eventually forced to use his Mangekyo, his ace in the hole, on the Sannin. But it still wasn't enough to beat him, and he could only do it once before he drops to his knees from chakra exhaustion. And if Naruto's clone didn't show up when he did, who knows what that creep would have done when he was about to bite his neck. A part of him was jealous that Naruto was still stronger than him. But another part of him was grateful. He couldn't ask for a better friend that would always have his back. Choji told us what happened when you found him, Naruto. Peach, looks like it's becoming a habit of you for saving our lives. Sorry about that, Sasuke said with a smirk. Luckily one of my clones was around. When he dispelled, I received all his memories. You guys really had it rough, being stalked and attacked by that creepy-ass freak all day. I'm just glad you guys are alright, Naruto said with a bright smile. We really don't know what we'll do without you, Naruto. Thank you, Sasuke said, which made Naruto smile even brighter than before, as if it was possible. Hey, till the end of the line, remember? Naruto said, as he offered a fist bump to the Uchiha. Yeah, till the end of the line, Sasuke said with a rare smile, as he returned the fist bump to his blonde friend. Ino and Hinata couldn't help but smile at the brotherly scene before them. Well, I'm glad that we're safe and together and all, but we should really head to the tower now. Do you guys have both scrolls? Shikamaru asked Team 7. Unfortunately, no. Orochimaru was the only person we encountered besides you guys, Hinata said with a frown. Which scroll do you need? Ino asked her Hyuga friend. An earth scroll, Hinata answered. This immediately made Naruto grin like a fox. Tisk, lucky for you guys, again, we happen to have an extra, Naruto informed, as he nodded to Shikamaru to give them the earth scroll they got from Samui's team. Shikamaru then handed the earth scroll to Choji. Wow, how many teams have you encountered? Choji asked Team 10. 3. Well, the third team is just one person, but let's not go into details, Naruto answered, not wanting to explain his situation with Karen and Root yet. This is great. Both our teams got both scrolls. Now we can just head to the tower together, Choji said excitedly, but it was a little too loud. Try to keep it down, Choji, we're still not out of the woods yet. Literally, Shikamaru scolded his chubby friend. Oh right, sorry, Shika, Choji said, as he rubbed the back of his head embarrassingly. It's still going to be a long walk though. And we can't really run, since Sasuke's reserves is still low and Hinata's head injury is affecting her balance. They both need rest and proper medical treatment as soon as possible, Ino informed them. That's okay, Ino-chan. I got that part covered. One of the clones I sent out was smart enough to head to tower and placed my Hiratian seal there, in case we need a quick getaway. So let's skip the walking and hold hands, shall we? Naruto said smugly, as he offered his hands to everyone. You don't have to make it sound weird, Naruto, Sasuke said with a deadpan look. They then formed a circle and held each other's hands. Once Naruto had gathered enough chakra to move 6 people including himself, he instantly teleported them all to the tower. Root headquarters. Tanuki, Sai and Yakumo were now kneeling before a very disappointed Danzo Shimura, who is sitting on his throne with a stoic and emotionless face, to hide his growing anger for their failure. After Tanuki briefed him about their failed attempt to retrieve the Uzumaki girl, with the rare special chakra, he was obviously not pleased. Especially due to the interference of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and his team. Hearing that Tanuki, his most promising root agent, with one of the rarest Kekkei Genkai in the world that he managed to acquire, was hardly a match against his rival's apprentice, had obviously made him angry. The thought of not acquiring the Uzumaki girl for his plans, had obviously made his ambitions took a small setback. The girl could have been an excellent weapon and replacement for the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, if the current one is proven to be a threat to him. For years, he had attempted to kidnap Naruto so he could turn the talented blonde into his most prized weapon. But unfortunately, he was under the protection of several strong ninjas, such as the Copy Ninja, the Snake Mistress, and the old Hokage himself. It got a lot harder when Naruto was made the clan head of the Senju, and was given the key to its impenetrable compound. The old Warhawk had spent years attempting to break into the Senju compound to acquire the Senju's secrets and the 1,000 scrolls in its library that contain many powerful ninjutsus, taijutsus, and genjutsus. But each attempt only resulted in the deaths of many of his root agents, as the compound has some sort of an invisible barrier protecting it that only allows a Senju, or who the Senju allows, entry. When his spies informed him that Naruto was able to enter the impenetrable compound without trouble, proving that he is indeed a Senju by blood, Danzo, along with the other two elders and the civilian council, practically demand Hiruzen to force Naruto to hand over the scrolls in the Senju library to Konoha's military, specifically to Danzo. Only to be denied, and had the whole shinobi council in an uproar, as it is the clan's right to deny their secrets and possessions from outsiders, that even the Hokage has no power over, as it is a law created by the first and second Hokage. Despite the civilian council's constant in denial that Naruto is a Senju, and claiming that the demon had somehow tricked the barrier into letting him in, idiots, the shinobi council had acknowledged that Naruto is indeed a Senju, and the new head of the clan. He along with Sasuke, are practically the youngest members in the village council, but luckily, due to their young age, they didn't have to attend the boring meetings yet, unless they are directly involved. This does not sit well for Danzo however. The Kyuubi boy now has a small level of political power in the village. And if the villagers learn that he is the son of the fourth Hokage, making him a prince of Konoha, Naruto will have more power and influence than ever. If Danzo is ever going to have Naruto under his control, he would have to use Shirsue's Mangekyo Sharingan, turning the Kyuubi Jinchuriki into his loyal puppet, without him even knowing it. But there is a 10% chance that the Koto Emitsukami will not work, based on the individual's mental resistance and willpower. That is the reason why Danzo could never control Hiruzen even if he wanted to. Despite having a 90% chance of success, he would be a fool to risk it on a Jinchuriki who happens to be a censor, unless it is a last resort. But until then, he will have to wait. For now, he has deal with the three young agents before him. I'm disappointed, Tanuki. You assured me that you will bring me the Uzumaki girl on her knees. And yet, I don't see her anywhere. Danzo said with a monotone voice. We did not take account on the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and his team to interfere. If they hadn't, we would have captured her by now. Tanuki explained. I'm not interested in excuses, agent. I only want results. As a shinobi, you must always expect the unexpected. You have failed in that as well. Danzo scolded, as his emotionless voice was promising a painful punishment for the three young agents. Forgive me, Danzo-sama. I take full responsibility. Tanuki apologized. Tanuki along with Fuyamanaka and Torune Aburame, are probably the only ones en route that has not been suppressed of their remaining emotions, as they are considered loyalist. They willfully follow Danzo, whether it is due to their misplaced faith in his ideals, or they were taken in at a very young and was impressionable to the old Warhawk's ways of a shinobi. Tanuki was valued for his Kekkei Genkai, the Meitun, shade style, and his scientific mind. Granted, he is more of a scientist than ninja, but despite his young age, Tanuki is one of his most aspiring and loyal agents. So Danzo decided to forgive his failure, just this once. No matter. There will be another time to capture the Uzumaki girl. But given that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki is aware of our organization and your identity, is troubling. This means that some of our agents are compromised. Danzo said with narrowed eyes. What are your orders, Danzo-sama? Tanuki asked. For now, we shall recall all our forces for the upcoming invasion. Orochimaru has already made his move, and we will soon hear the reports of him attacking the Uchiha in the exam anytime now. Danzo stated. Are we participating in the invasion as well? Tanuki asked. No. We will not aid either sides. Once the village is crushed and Hiruzen is dead, I will finally claim my rightly place as the 5th Hokage and rebuild Konoha in my image. Danzo said with a sinister smirk. With respect, Danzo-sama, but I doubt Suna and Oto will do much damage to the village. As you say, we are the superior village in the elemental nations. Tanuki couldn't help but be skeptical. Correct, you are, Tanuki. But the village will face many damages nevertheless. And Hiruzen will not survive against Orochimaru. I am confident the snake has taken many steps to ensure his assassination is a success. Danzo said, with the smirk never leaving his face. It will be a glorious thing to witness, Danzo-sama. Tanuki said, as he couldn't help but smirk as well. Yes, it will. But moving on. Your team is now disbanded. Danzo then turned to Sai. Sai, you will go to one of our bases in the outskirts of Konoha with Shin, to continue your training. Danzo then turns to Yakumo. Yakumo, your reprogramming will resume with Fu on sub-level 3. Meet him there now. Danzo ordered the two. Yes, Danzo-sama. Sai and Yakumo said, as they left the room. Danzo then turns his attention to the last agent. As for you, Tanuki, you will go to our hidden facility in Kusagakure, to oversee the progression of Project New and Weapon RD. I want them finished as soon as possible. I will not accept any more setbacks. Soon, this world and everything in it, will belong to me. This is the way. Danzo said with a slight smug. This is the way. Tanuki repeated, before he left the room. All Danzo could do, is smirk with satisfaction. Naruto may have denied him the Uzumaki girl, but he will soon have both of them under his control. He will not let a 14-year-old brat stand in the way of his destiny. With Orochimaru. Deep in the forest of death, the snake Sannin was jumping through trees, as his body was in constant pain. He could not help but sneer, as his anger for the blonde Senju was showing. He had never seen such a powerful level of control over the water affinity, especially from a young genin, that could almost rival the second Hokage or his former associate, Kisame Hoshigaki. He had no choice, but to shed his skin once again, as a pair of hands started to come out of his elongated mouth and an undamaged Orochimaru emerged out of it, completely covered in saliva. He never thought he would use it twice in an hour. First, Sasuke surprised him with his Mangekyo Sharingan's black fire attack, then the Kyuubi Jinchuriki practically crushed him with a giant water vortex. If it wasn't for his snake-like body, he would have been killed by the sheer heavy force of Naruto's attack. Not even his remaining hidden mud clones survived, as they were destroyed in the gigantic water wave. Orochimaru wanted nothing more but go back and finish the blonde off, but he knew he needed to retreat, as Naruto had not only unleashed a small amount of his tenant's chakra to empower his water jutsu, but it was enough to alert every single Anbu in the area, including the Hokage as well. He rather not fight/slaughter a squad of Anbu, when he is supposed to keep a low profile. He needed to find Sasuke and mark him, but he could not sense the Uchiha in the forest anymore. Somehow Sasuke and his team, along with the Kyuubi boy and his team, managed to arrive at the tower, in a blink of an eye. This was not going according to plan as he thought. He was supposed to mark Sasuke and send his sacrificial pawns to test his power, if he should survive the curse mark of heaven. Sasuke was supposed to be his prize in his vengeful quest against Konoha. But surprise after surprise, kept the young Uchiha from his clutches. He will make the Kyuubi brat pay for his interference. As he was still seething with anger and was so deep in his thoughts, he suddenly sensed a familiar presence coming towards him. Fire style, Dragon Flame Jutsu. A large stream of fire in a shape of a dragon, was shot towards the Sannin, who only smirked when recognizes the pretty voice of his attacker. The fire dragon hit the target dead on, but Orochimaru wasn't a Sannin for no reason, as he easily substitutes himself with a mud clone. The attacker landed on a tree branch where Orochimaru was last seen, and she could only grit her teeth in frustration when she saw it was a burnt substitution. Kukukuku, is that any way to treat your sensei after all these years, Anko-chan? I expected better from you. Orochimaru said with a smirk as he appeared to phase out of the branch, a couple feet from Anko. Glad to disappoint, sensei. You got a lot of nerve, showing your face here. Kukuku, you wound me, Anko-chan. I thought I was special to you. After all, I remember the day when I chose you as my apprentice, you were as giddy as a fangirl. And now you attack me, the moment you saw me, and I've not yet heard a simple, hello. You goddamned bastard. I was giddy because the Sanins were my heroes. I thought I could have been the next Minato-sama, if I just work hard to be your apprentice. An apprentice of a Sanin, that was the biggest fucking mistake of my life. Kukukuku, if you want to follow in the footsteps of that dead blonde fool, you should have become Jiraiya's apprentice. But then again, there are several reasons why you would never do that. Right, Anko-chan? What's done is done, I can't change my past. But I can change my future. And that starts by ridding this world from you. Anko said, as she made one-handed hand seal, and thrust her arm forward. Striking shadow snakes. Several snakes came slithering out of the sleeve of her trench coat, as they charged towards the snake Sanin, only to be countered by his own snakes with ease, and overpowered hers. You dare use my own jutsu against me, Anko-chan. You are as pathetic as I remember. Anko gritted her teeth in anger, and jumped up high in the air to avoid Orochimaru's snakes as they practically chase after her, like a homing missile. She then took out several kunais with paper bombs attached, and threw them towards the snakes, killing them instantly in a fiery explosion. Orochimaru then suddenly appeared behind Anko, causing her eyes to widen. As she was about to turn around to counter, he landed a strong kick to her gut, causing her to cough out some blood and saliva, as she was sent crashing on the branch behind her. Anko was now on her knees, as she was struggling to get up. Kukuku, as fun as this reunion has been, I believe I have wasted enough time with you. Orochimaru said with a sadistic smirk, as he formed a single hand seal, activating Anko's curse mark. Ah! Anko yelled out in pain, as she clutches her neck at where her curse mark of heaven is located. Sweet, sweet Anko-chan. If it's any consolation, you never stood a chance against me. Orochimaru said, as approached the downed Anko, and kneeled in front of the pain-filled Kunoichi. He then cupped her cheeks in his hand and turned her head to face him, but I'll admit, you have grown. Not just in skill, but in beauty as well. You make me almost regretful of abandoning you. Orochimaru said with a smirk as he licked his lips. Anko was still trembling in pain, but suddenly she stopped. Causing Orochimaru to wonder, since he is still activating her curse mark to incapacitate her body. Then Anko's face changed into a smirk. CK. Anko started to glow in a bright light, and Orochimaru's eyes widened when she suddenly exploded in a fiery explosion, sending him flying a few feet towards the real Anko, who appeared out the shadows. Anko had apparently substituted herself with a shadow clone explosion at the nick of time. As Orochimaru was still flying towards her, she had just finished making several hand seals, and electricity started to spark from her fingers. Lightning style, snake lightning. Anko thrusted her arm forward and shot a bolt electricity from her palm, that took the shape of a serpent. The snake lightning hits Orochimaru dead on, as his body twitched in pain. Anko smirked with satisfactory, only for her smirk to fall, when Orochimaru suddenly dissolved into mud, indicating that he had substituted himself with a mud clone, once again. Quite an interesting jutsu, Anko-chan. Orochimaru said, as he appeared out of the shadows, a couple feet from Anko. Do you mind if I borrow it? Orochimaru casually asked, as he was really interested in any snake-themed jutsus, especially one that is powerful. Fuck off, creep. That's an Anko special. Anko yelled out, as she refuses to give up her original jutsu. Kukuku once again, I am surprised. But also curious. How did you resist the curse mark? Orochimaru asked out of curiosity, and a little bit of anger. Let's just say, cute dog, help me suppress it. Anko said with a smirk as she reveals the curse sealing around her curse mark, courtesy of her Kashikuin. This seal is as strong as my will. And that means you have no power over me whatsoever. Anko said confidently, with the smirk never leaving her face. Kukuku, wrong again, Anko-chan. As long as you have that beautiful mark on your neck, you will always belong to me. Orochimaru declared loudly, as he charged towards Anko, and engaged her in a fast-paced taijutsu fight. The special Jonin was holding her own, but the snake Sannin was clearly dominating the whole fight. She tried to push him away, and get some distance between them so she can use her jutsus, but Orochimaru would always come rushing back towards her, like a ruthless predator. Anko now has several bruises on her face and body, while her nose and lip were bleeding from all the punches and kicks, as she still struggles to land one hit on her former sensei. This is bad. Most of my jutsus are long range, and every time I try to get some distance, he would come rushing towards me. Anko thought in panic, as she blocks several punches from Orochimaru. There's only one close-range jutsu that I know is strong enough. But I haven't used it in years, and it's still not perfected. Anko thought, as she managed to land several punches and kicks on Orochimaru, but only to be kicked in the ribs and was sent crashing towards a branch. I have no choice, it's a fucking now or never situation. But I need a distraction first. Anko thought, as she threw several smoke bombs on the ground, causing Orochimaru to stop his tracks to locate his former apprentice. Kukukuku, you are growing desperate, Anko-chan. Do you really think a smoke screen is enough to? Orochimaru didn't get to finish his sentence, as he suddenly heard a loud swirling sound coming straight towards his back. As he turns to counter her attack, it was already too late. The last thing he saw was a blue sphere of chakra in his former apprentice's hand. Rasengan. Anko thrusted the ball of condensed chakra into Orochimaru's back. The Sannin yelled out in pain, as he felt his organs being rearranged from the inside, and he was later sent spinning and crashing towards branch in a loud thud. Anko immediately fell to her knees afterwards. Her chakra is now nearly depleted, and she was exhausted from her former sensei's beatdown. She was gasping for air, trying to catch her breath, as beads of sweat were falling down her head. The fight was over, or so she thought. Kukukuku. His sinister laugh alone was enough to make Anko widen her eyes in panic, as she turns her head to see Orochimaru struggling to get back up on his feet, but only for him to open his elongated mouth wide, and another undamaged Orochimaru came out of it, like a snake shedding its skin. You have truly grown, Anko-chan. If today has taught me anything, is that I should stop underestimating my opponents. That was the third time I shed my skin today. But like I said before, you never stood a chance against me. Orochimaru said with a sinister smirk. Damn it. I can hardly move anymore. I'm fucked. And not in the fun way. Anko thought in panic. Without warning, Orochimaru then shot out his elongated tongue towards Anko, wrapping it tightly around her neck, and roughly pulling her towards him. She was now dangling in the air, as she weakly tried to claw his tongue off. She was now struggling to breath. Kukukuku, you are very tasty, Anko-chan. Almost good enough to eat. Orochimaru said with a smirk, and surprisingly in full sentence, despite having his tongue occupied, whilst he tastes her sweaty skin. Anko desperately tried to form another Rasengan in her hand, but the spiraling sphere immediately faded before it could take shape, meaning that she no longer has enough chakra. That jutsu is as weak as the man who taught it to you. But as a thank you for entertaining me for this long, Anko-chan, I will give you a slow and painful death. Orochimaru said with a sadistic smile, causing Anko's eyes to widen, as he took out a kunai and started cutting Anko's skin. Ah! Anko yelled out in pain, as her former sensei continues to torture her to death. This immediately brings back all the memories of pain and experimentation that the snake Sannin had done to her when she was young. At that time, Orochimaru had gone beyond the deep end and realized subtly is no longer an option for his experiments. He knew he needed to abandon Konoha soon, as the third Hokage was getting close to discovering his crimes. The last thing Orochimaru did to Enko was placing the curse mark of heaven prototype on her. It was a major improvement of the curse mark of earth, but it has an extremely high possibility that the receiver will not survive the process. Out of the 100 test subjects he had, only one survived. And that was Enko. She remembered the pain she felt when the curse mark was placed on her. It felt like she was burning from the inside out, and her bones were aching like they were about to break. She cried out to Orochimaru, begging her sensei to help her, but Orochimaru simply left her in a dark room, so she could suffer alone. The next day, when Orochimaru found that she survived the process, he was truly impressed. The young girl had a will of iron. But she was nothing more than a successful experiment to him. She just proved his theory, that only someone exceptional can survive the curse mark, as long as they have the will. Rather than take her with him, so he could continue his experimentation, he did the worst thing to someone who had trusted and admired him for so long. He abandoned her, when she is no longer useful to him. Like she was a used-up toy. Days later, after Orochimaru left the village, Enko was found and rescued by a white-haired man, who immediately brought her back to the village to get treated. But she never truly recovered from her experience. And now, seeing Orochimaru still cutting her flesh, as blood was staining her clothes, she could feel herself starting to lose consciousness. After he had his fun, Orochimaru released her neck from his elongated tongue, and unceremoniously dropping her on the ground, on her belly. Orochimaru chuckled with glee, as he licked her blood off his kunai. He then used his foot to turn her body over, so her back was now on the ground, with her eyes facing his yellow ones. Kukuku, like I said, Enko-chan, you will always belong to me. Orochimaru said with a sadistic grin. Enko felt helpless, probably for the first time in so long. She wanted nothing more but to kill the snake bastard standing before her, with all her might. But her body wasn't responding to her command. His cruel words continues to echo through her mind. Is this really who she is? Is she destined to be this snake's toy forever? But then she started to see all her memories of the two people, who she grew to love with all her heart. How they made her feel wanted. How they shared her pain and loneliness. How they became her family. Kashikuin, Naruto. Enko thought with a happy smile. This was enough to rebuild her courage, as she glares at the snake Sanin. You're wrong. Enko said weakly. I belong with my family. Not to you. Enko said with defiance in her voice. Orochimaru simply laughed at that, like it was joke. Family? Kukukukuku, what fool would love you? Orochimaru said mockingly. Then suddenly, Orochimaru felt something impaled through his chest from the back. It was a hand covered in lightning. What the? Orochimaru didn't get to finish his sentence, as the lighting hand was immediately pulled out from his chest, leaving a large hole, but then he felt a large blade cleaved him in two, by the person appearing in front of him. Three unknown figures suddenly appeared, as one of them grabbed Enko and jumped to a safer branch, while the other two stood defensively in front of them. Enko was still disoriented, but she was able to see a lock of silver hair that is defying gravity, a mask, and two colored eyes. And they were showing both signs of worry and anger, as they gaze upon her. Kashikuin? Enko asked weakly. I'm here, Enko-chan. Kakashi said reassuringly, as he held her in his arms. Enko still couldn't believe it. She was saved. Kakashi-senpai, how is she? The second figure, revealed to be Ferret, asked with worry regarding the semi-unconscious snake mistress. She needs medical attention immediately. Kakashi said with a slight panic in his voice. Then take her to the tower. Ferret and I will handle this freak, the third figure, revealed to be Zabuza, said as he held his kubikuribochi in both hands, ready to fight the snake Sanin. After Orochimaru was impaled by Kakashi's Raikiri, he was then cut in half by Zabuza. As he, or more specifically his top half, laid motionless on the ground for several seconds, the snake Sanin once again regurgitated another Orochimaru from his mouth, leaving himself undamaged, but completely grossing out the two Anbis. "Thank God, I haven't had lunch yet," Ferret said disgustingly, as she took her katana from her back. "And I thought I've seen everything," Zabuza said, as he took a battle stance. Orochimaru was gritting his teeth with frustration. That was the fourth time he had to shed his skin. And while that jutsu had saved his life as much as he could count, it takes tremendous amount of chakra to use. And while he could still handle two elite Anbis, despite one just happens to wield the Kubikarabocho, adding Kakashi to the mix might be a problem. And if they're here, more will soon arrive. It seems I have overstayed my welcome. And while today has been very disappointing for me, I did learn many valuable things. But now, I must take my leave. Take this message to your Hokage. If he decides to cancel the exam early, I will destroy Konoha, and every man, women, and child within it. Orochimaru promised. You're not going anywhere, you bastard. You're going to pay for what you did to Enko-chan. Kakashi said with a calm voice, but inside he was burning with rage. He almost lost another person that is precious to him. Kukukuku, familiar words. It seems, you and that Senju brat have something in common. You both love broken things. Orochimaru said with a smirk, which made Kakashi even more angrier when he mentioned his little brother's name. You stay away from Naruto. And if you ever lay your hands on Enko-chan again, Kakashi said, as he activated his Raikiri in his right hand, I'll kill you. Kakashi said with determination and anger in his eyes. Kukuku, you are welcome to try, Kakashi. But you and I both know that you can't protect anyone you care about, Kukukukukuku. Orochimaru mocked sadistically, as he disappeared in a purple fire shunshin. After confirming the snake Sonin was truly gone, both Ferret and Zabuza let out a deep breath, that they didn't realize that they had been holding. Orochimaru truly has an intimidating aura. Kakashi then deactivates the lightning in his hand, and turns his attention to the injured Anko. He then picked her up and carried her bridal style, as he turns his attention to the two Anbis. Let's go. We need to get Enko-chan to the tower as fast as possible. Kakashi stated. Right, I'll lead the way. Zabuza-senpai, you cover our 6. Ferret said, as she leads them to the tower. As they jump from tree to tree, Anko, who was still conscious, couldn't help but look at Kakashi with so much love and relief in her eyes. Orochimaru was dead wrong about her. She didn't belong to him, because she knew in her heart that she belongs with the handsome pervy Cyclops who had always treated her like she was a princess. Kakashi and Naruto are her one true family. And before she could fall into unconsciousness, she used her remaining strength to whisper to Kakashi. I love you, Kashi-kun. Anko said weakly, as she finally fell unconscious on his chest. Even though her voice was low, Kakashi was able to hear her words like it was the only thing he could hear. He then gently kissed her head through his mask and said, I love you too, Enko-chan. And I promise that I will never lose you too. Kakashi vowed, as he, Ferret and Zabuza quickly made their way towards the tower, with teams 10 and 7. After Naruto had safely teleported everyone to the tower, which made Shikamaru along with Team 7 vomited their guts out, as they were still not used to Naruto's space-time technique, they quietly made their way to a chamber, where there was an inscription on the wall, that almost sounded like a riddle. Ino was able to interpret it that the inscription means that they can finally open their scrolls now, which both teams hesitantly did. The combined scrolls that they had collected revealed to be 2 halves of a summoning formula, which made them toss their scrolls to the floor, expecting it to be another underhanded test or something. But then out of the smoke of the summoning, teams 10 and 7 were greeted by Asuma, and surprisingly Iruka, who was there for team 7. Asuma-sensei. Iruka-sensei. What are you guys doing in a summoning scroll? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. We weren't in the scroll, kiddo. The scrolls you've collected simply summoned us from where we were, which was at the Hokage Tower. We were on standby, waiting for you guys to either pass or fail. Thank God you passed, because I had a lot of money running on you guys. Asuma said with a shameless smirk. Such a role model. The Genins of Team 10 thought sarcastically. You guys made it in record time too. You were the first teams to arrive in the tower, and it's only been a day. Iruka said with a proud smile for his former students. Really? Wow, I am so bragging this to my dad when this is over. Ino said with a confident smirk, a sentiment that Hinata wished she also shared. But what are you doing here, Iruka-sensei? Not that it's not good to see you again, it's just I expected Kakashi-sensei or something to come out of our scrolls. Sasuke asked the scared-faced Chunin. Kakashi had an emergency that he needed to personally handle, so he asked me to fill in. Plus, I couldn't resist the opportunity of seeing you guys again. But I am more surprised that you all came here together, but nevertheless, it is a welcoming sight. I'm glad, despite everything, you six managed to stick together. You guys grow up so fast. And I heard a lot of good things about you, Naruto. Iruka said with a proud smile. Yeah, I've been a busy boy lately. Naruto said, as he rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, I want to hear all about your adventures. Maybe after this, I'll take you and Ino out for some Ichiraka ramen. My treat. Iruka said with a warm smile, which made the blonde couple jump out of joy and hugged each other at the thought of free ramen. Yay, ramen! Ramen, ramen, amen. Ramen, ramen, amen. Both Naruto and Ino childishly dance around Iruka like he was some sort of savior, as they happily chant about their favorite food. Troublesome ramen-worshipping blondes. Shikamaru thought, slightly embarrassed by his teammates. They're so cute together. Hinata thought, as she smiled at her childish friends. What do they put in their ramen? Sasuke thought curiously, with a sweat drop. Alright, let's get back to the topic at hand. Iruka and I are here as your greeters, once you entered the tower. And since you guys have at least 4 more days, we'll escort you to your rooms to rest. There's a cafeteria on the 3rd floor if you're hungry, and feel free explore the non-restricted areas. But under no circumstances that you are allowed to leave the tower. That means you, kiddo. Asuma stated the last part directly at Naruto, knowing about his space-time ninjutsu, which made the blonde pout. Aw man. I was hoping to teleport to Ichiraku's for some ramen. Geez, both my father and grandfather used the Hiraishin to literally end wars, and here I am, upset that I can't use it to get something as trivial as ramen, and I am completely justified, praise the ramen gods. Naruto thought proudly. Before you show us our room, can you take us to the medical wing? Hinata and I had a very unwelcoming encounter with someone dangerous in the forest, and she needs medical treatment for her head. Sasuke said, as he was still holding on to Hinata, like he was afraid that she could fall at any time, despite her constant assurance that she is now better than before. Alright. Iruka, will you take Team 7 to the medical wing, while I take my team to their room? Asuma asked the scarred Chunin. Sure, no problem. See you later, Naruto. Iruka said goodbye to his favorite student. Bye, Iruka-sensei. Naruto said goodbye back, as he waved to the scarred Chunin. As Team 7 went to the medical wing with Iruka, Asuma was leading his team to their room. It was nothing fancy, just a standard medium-sized room, with 3 single beds, a small window, a table and chair at the corner, and a bathroom, which made Ino squeal with glee when she saw it, as she desperately wanted to take a long shower. Shikamaru immediately went to his bed and fell asleep, causing everyone else to sweat drop. Naruto then sat on his slightly uncomfortable bed, and surprisingly with Ino sitting beside him instead of her own bed. Ino didn't say it out loud, but she definitely wanted to sleep on the same bed with her whiskers. It's not like they haven't slept together before, occasionally when she sleeps over at his apartment. She always refers to him as her warm, blonde pillow. But the older they get, the harder it is to control their growing hormones, as Naruto was trying his best to be a proper gentleman, while Ino was trying to be a respectful lady. The 2 blondes then turned their attention to their Jonin sensei, who had only one question for them. So, anything interesting happened? Asuma asked casually, as he took a draft from his cigarette. Well, that depends. Naruto stated. On? Asuma asked. Whether foiling a rude operation to kidnap a young genin from Kusa, or the fact that I fought against Orochimaru and survived, is the most interesting part. Naruto simply stated, which made Asuma's eyes widened in shock, and the cigarette in his mouth fell to the floor, as his mouth was hanging open. He then turned his full attention to his blonde students with a serious look. Please tell me you're joking. Asuma asked. Nope. Ino answered for him. Sai, you do know, you have to explain this to Dad, when he gets here, right? Asuma asked his troublesome student. Most likely, yeah. He and I have a lot to talk about. Also, I want Ino-chan and her father to be there during the briefing. Naruto stated. Why? Asuma asked. Let's just say, we have new evidence, that is enough to start a thorough investigation on a certain warhawk, that can hopefully put him down for good. Naruto said, referring to his and Ino's memories regarding their encounter with Tanuki and his team. Alright, I'll let Dad know to bring Inoichi-san with him, before he gets here tomorrow. Asuma said, as he took out a cigarette from his pocket and light the sucker up, as he took a deep draft and exhaled a small cloud of smoke. You know, this is a dangerous game you're playing, kiddo. And it's only gonna get harder from here on out. Asuma warned, as he took another draft. We're shinobis, Asuma-sensei. Enduring is part of the job. Naruto said with a confident smirk. Ha ha ha, spoken like a true shinobi. Alright, I'll leave you guys to rest. I still need time to process that my students fought against both Root and a Sannin in one day. And here I thought being a Jonin sensei was gonna be a cakewalk. How wrong was I? Asuma said with a weak laugh, as he headed towards the exit. See you later, sensei. Ino said with a wave, as Asuma finally left the room, to send the emergency message to his father. The second Asuma closed the door, Naruto and Ino immediately smashed their lips together, as they engage in a lustful makeout session. Naruto grabbed Ino and pulled her on his lap, not once leaving her luscious lips, as he held her slim waist closer to his body, whilst she gripped his blonde locks. Apparently, the rush of facing possible death and surviving was a real turn-on for the blondes. Also the fact that they haven't kissed in almost a day. That is considered too long for them already. After several minutes of tonsil tennis, they finally broke their lip lock, but that didn't stop Ino from sneaking a quick kiss on his nose, causing him to chuckle a bit. He absolutely adores the blonde beauty in his arms. I don't know about you, Ino-chan, but I could use an all-day sleep. Naruto suggested, while trying to suppress a yawn. As long as I get to sleep with you. These beds are so uncomfortable, and I want my warm blonde pillow. Ino said with a smirk as she hugged Naruto's body tightly. Ha ha ha, as you wish, milady. Naruto said with a warm smile, as he and Ino laid down on his bed, in a spooning position. They were so exhausted that the second they closed their eyes, the two blondes immediately fell asleep, in their loving embrace. Somewhere else in the tower. Change of plans, Kabuto-kun. You're not quitting the preliminary round. Orochimaru stated coldly, as he was standing in a room with his most faithful spy. This immediately surprised the glasses-wearing spy. What? But Orochimaru-sama, if I do that? Kabuto was slightly worried, as that was not part of the plan. Your information on the Senju boy is outdated. And because of that, he had prevented my attempt to mark Sasuke-kun. Orochimaru yelled out angrily, as he unleashed a small amount of his killing intent towards Kabuto, who was practically sweating bullets from the pressure. Forgive me, Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto didn't know what else to say. That boy is much more skilled than we thought. His control over the water affinity is beyond exceptional, and he seems to master Inkiri's assassination techniques. And I have a feeling that he has not yet shown his true potential. Orochimaru said, still seething at the thought of the blonde Senju. I will update my ninja cards as soon as I can. But if you don't mind me asking, why must I stick around for the preliminary when I am supposed to quit like always? Kabuto asked. Because I'm done underestimating that boy. According to your cards, he is a sensor. We still do not know the range and function of his sensory ability yet. It could be automatic for all we know. He could spot me the moment I enter the arena, and warn the Hokage. And I doubt suppressing my chakra would work either. That is why I won't be attending the preliminary round, and I need you to report on Sasuke-kun's progress. Orochimaru stated. Very well, Orochimaru-sama. But I hope you don't mind if I intentionally lose my fight when my turn comes. It's best if I don't reveal my true skills to our enemy. And who knows, it might benefit my cover more if I lose poorly. Kabuto said smugly, as he pushed his glasses up. Try to make it look convincing though. Because I am tired of surprises. I need to find a way to mark Sasuke-kun when this is done. That boy won't escape me for long. Orochimaru declared, as he shunshin away from the tower. Kabuto then took out Naruto's card and looked at his picture. He narrowed his eyes in annoyance, that a 14-year-old kid was able to cause so much trouble for his master. You're starting to be a problem, Naruto. Just who are you? Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed this what if and want to see next part of it, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. See you in the next video. Peace.